In our next example, this time we are solving for an angle, and I know that because they are giving me a capital letter to solve for. So again, just to get my picture set up, so A, B, C. So we are told that side A is 15, side B is 16, and side C is 18. And then we are solving for angle B. So I'm just going to put a mark there, or you can put an X there. Just make sure that you know which angle that we're trying to find. So once we have the angle that we are trying to find, to start our formula, we always start with the side across from it. Okay, so if I'm trying to find angle B, that means in my formula I am starting with 16. So we are going to have 16 squared equals, and then my other two sides squared. So 18 squared plus 15 squared. And the order that you put those in doesn't matter. And then minus 2 times each of the sides. So 18, 15. And then the cosine of the angle that we are trying to find. Okay. So now we are working through this problem trying to solve for this. So this part I need to get by itself. So to do that, we're just going to kind of do it in steps. Again, we have to make sure that we are following the correct order of operations. So if you have forgotten what that is, it is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And for solving, we are undoing it. So we are going this direction. So we are undoing any addition and subtraction, and then multiplication and division. So to start with, let's simplify all of our exponents. So 16 squared is 256, and 18 squared, 324, and 15 squared is 225. And then we can multiply these three numbers together. Okay, so we're just taking 2 times 18 times 15. And you guys can kind of see my calculator down here, so I'm doing all those calculations just to make sure I don't make a simple mistake. Okay, so 2 times 18 times 15 is 540. I didn't include the subtraction sign, so this still needs to be a minus here. Okay, and then we would still have that cosine of angle B. All right, so again, my goal is trying to get this alone. So I have to start by undoing my addition and subtraction. So next, I'm going to subtract this 324 over. Oops, 24. And at the same time, I'm also going to subtract the 225. So I'm just going to do that in one step. So 256 minus 324 minus 225 is negative 900. Oh my goodness, negative 293. And then that is going to be equal to this negative 540 cosine of angle B. All right, so again, goal is trying to get this by itself. So the next thing that we have to do is get rid of this 540. So to do that, we are just going to divide both sides by that negative 540. And we want to leave it as a fraction. So if you are doing this on your calculator, just have the calculator take care of the fraction part for you. So negative 293 divided by negative 540, and then use your math button to change it back to a fraction, and it will be the reduced fraction. So notice how the negatives just simplified out. So now we will have 293 over 540 equal to the cosine of B. So since we are finding an angle, we have to use the inverse of that. So now that this is alone, on both sides, we're doing the inverse of cosine. Okay, so these two things cancel out. So I will have angle B left. And then this fraction is going into the inverse of cosine. So inverse cosine of 293 divided by 540. So that is what we are typing in to our calculator to get the approximation. Okay. So second cosine to get its inverse, 293 divided by 540. So 57.14 degrees, since we are finding an angle, is going to be our final answer for that. Okay. All right, so again, it's really important that you are following the correct order of operations to get this by itself before we take the inverse to both sides. Okay. Now with the law of cosine, if we have the formula, the solving part usually isn't too bad. But if you're not told to use the SOHCAHTOA method, law of sine, or law of cosine, knowing when to use those methods is typically the most difficult part. So remember, if we are dealing with a right triangle, so I'm just going to make some kind of notes off to the side up here. Okay, so right triangle, that is when we use SOHCAHTOA. Non-right triangles is going to be either the law of sine or law of cosine. So we have to know when to use what. So for the law of cosine, if you look at our two examples here, when we were finding a side, we needed to be given side, angle, side. Okay, so for law of cosine, we have to be given side, angle, side. Or if we're finding an angle, notice how we were given all three sides. So side, side, side. Okay. So if we don't have one of those two things, then we are using law of cosine. So what's important about law of cosine is that we need a side and angle across. Okay. So that's kind of how you know when to use each of these. Okay. So right triangle, we go right to SOHCAHTOA. If we have a non-right triangle, we want to look to see if we were given side, angle, side, or side, side, side. And if we weren't given this information, then we're probably going to end up using the law of sines. So in the next set of videos, I'll just be going through the story problems.